So it sounds like it was kind of at that moment, you're kind of deep in this game, and then you realized, okay, we need to focus more on discoverability, because I agree with you, and I think everyone would agree with you, podcast discoverability is difficult. And so is this when you started planting the seeds for Momento and kind of coming up with your team on a new idea?
Yeah, exactly. You know, the
and
first
what year
seed
is
we had,
this, more or less? Like, I want to know, like, the beginning, planting those seeds of Momento, like, because I'd like to know, just for me and for the listeners, out of curiosity, like how long it takes to actually like code something and build something in the tech world, because that's not something I have any concept about. So it'd just be cool to understand, when like the idea sparked, and then when like the wheels started getting in motion, and how long that takes.
The first time we started writing code for Momento was during COVID. It's probably around April of 2020.
Okay.
And it took us about 3 months to build the first version of the app that worked. It's actually kind of a funny story how it started. There's an initial technical problem of how do you grab a part of audio and turn it into text, just snipping a part of audio. And I spent a few days trying to figure it out, and I couldn't. And so I went to my brother, and at the time, because of COVID, we were both under the same roof. So I just go up to his room, said, "Hey, and we're working on this thing," just casually chatting. And he looks at me, he's like, "You're so dumb. I could do this in one night." And I said, "All right, typical brother banter."
Sure.
I go to sleep. I wake up the next morning. He actually built it. Like, he actually found a way to do it. And that's what kicked it off. Once we found it was technically feasible, everything else was a lot simpler from that point. So we built the first MVP in a few months. And then we built Momento for about, almost like 2 years. We were building the app for about 2 years until we, grew to enough users. We raised a pre-seed on the initial idea of Momento, and the goal was to solve podcast discovery. There's actually one or two other apps that have taken almost the exact same path we have, and also been trying to solve podcast discovery through moments and whatnot. So it was a fundable idea, and there was, I think there's potential. But then a few months into being funded, once we started working full time on it and like really looking at the product, we realized that there's this opportunity to solve discovery. For our goal is to solve discovery for podcasts. That's when we realized like the solution is not going to be on the consumer side, at least not today. For now, or at least in our current world, the solution is going to be on the podcaster side.
Let's have you describe what Momento is, and we'll get into it a little bit.
Yeah. Momento is the AI assistant for content to do all the things that you would typically hire a freelancer to do. A lot of human capital required. AI can now automate a lot of that. And the way you mentioned earlier at the beginning, like, we're kind of like a software company. The world, for the listeners who are not in the tech world, companies in the software space are commonly known as software as a service. You create a software, you provide it at some kind of subscription or for some kind of amount of money, and you're able to access it and use it. I think the future of technology is going to be not software as a service, but AI as an assistant. It's not a great acronym. It's AAAA. But AI as an assistant means that if you're an accountant, a real estate agent, or a creator / podcaster, you will have an AI tool that now is assisting you in the tasks that you're doing, not just software as a service. So that's what Momento is. It's an AI assistant for all the stuff that happens after you've edited the podcast, which is a lot of stuff that actually gets not forgotten, but you've already spent hours recording and editing the content. It tends to be a lot of work, and there's a lot of fatigue when it comes to now distributing it and marketing it and posting about it, because you're probably also already moving on to your next episode. You got to start recording and planning the next one.
Oh, so dude, it's so much work. It's like, you spend all this work recording, booking a guest, prepping, producing the show. And then it's like, well, damn, now I got to get this out to the people. And in addition to like publishing on an Apple, I need to be creating shareable assets for social media, or writing copy for a newsletter, or post for LinkedIn, or whatever it is. And so, you're spot on. And I don't think people outside of the podcast world really kind of know about that aspect of it, or if they do, obviously they're seeing clips and stuff on social. I don't think they realize how much time like a human had to put into that. And if you don't have big budgets or a team, or you don't have a large podcast that's generating money, it's a lot of financial resources and time for sure.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. So being able to, I mean, if you can afford it, you hire someone to do this, a freelancer, or you've probably seen a bunch of marketing companies in the space. Like, how much does a company usually charge to do this work?
It's a lot. I mean, you could definitely spend upwards, starting probably a couple $1,000s a month, and then upwards from there for sure.
Wow. And that's where we came in, where we said, well, if podcasters can't, most people can't access that kind of budget. So can we create an AI? Now that AI is coming onto the scene, could we apply it to this problem? We were able to apply it to this problem. And the core of it is, can you get AI to identify marketable assets? And can you build a platform that makes it really easy to produce those marketable assets into video? And then we also do text now for tweets and blogs and whatnot. So now you have this assistant that can do any of the tasks that technically a freelancer or an agency would do, but it can do it in just like a minute or two per asset. And now you can just do it in an hour after you've edited. It's very painless. The AI is suggesting things. It's creative. It's giving you ideas of what you could title your moments, the way you could caption your moments, what you could use as your moments. It takes a lot of the labor out. And for the listeners thinking about AI, the future of AI is not replacing people. It's replacing labor such that humans can just focus on decision making. So now a user using Momento just hops in and says, these are all these different moments I could use. I want to focus on these three. These are the ones that are representative of my episode. And then here's a bunch of titles I could use or hooks I could use. I'm going to use this one. And then here's a bunch of templates and here's a bunch of video production elements I could use. I'm just going to choose these ones and I'm done. Versus all the human labor you usually have to put in, which removes the opportunity to actually make those decisions. Because if you have to spend a bunch of time just doing it, you don't get to spend the time iterating and choosing what you might want to use for your final output.
And that's exactly why I started using it and why I like it. And for me, mainly like the video component, because I'm going to next week take this recording that we're recording right now. I'll do my editing of the full length video, get it up onto YouTube, and then Momento will actually pull in that video. It's super easy. You just, on the top right corner, you select your YouTube channel, and it's going to create these moments. And I'm going to use those as short form clips for social media. Oftentimes the AI will pick something great and I won't have to do anything else. Other times the AI will pick something, I'll make a few little tweaks here and there. And I can easily and quickly produce several video assets for one episode. And the templates are great. And I know, David, you guys are working on even more customization, which I think is key. Even I've been using it I've probably done like 15 or so short form videos. And I've even, since I started using it, like maybe 2 months ago, have already seen some improvement. So kudos to you. And guys, if you're looking for a solution to easily, exponentially, put out several assets from one episode, it's a good solution to that. And so let's talk a little bit more about its features, David. So short form video clips, now your transcriptions, getting into tweets and blogs. Let's talk a little bit about that, because I'm actually a big blogger. In addition to the podcast, I actually turn the podcast into blogs, and in addition, write about other topics in the industry. But yeah, let's learn a little bit more about all the features that are in it.
Let's even maybe take it at a higher level for the listeners.
Sure.
The features enable an end goal. The end goal is reaching people where they are. So let's think about discovery. Discovery, to make something discoverable, you need to produce something that sparks curiosity and can exist on a platform where there is an audience. That's why people pay, millions of dollars for a Super Bowl ad. They spend millions of dollars first for the spot. Luckily, you don't need to spend money. You could spend money. You don't need to spend money to get a spot on Facebook or Instagram. So you kind of have the platform ready for you. But then they spend millions of dollars as well producing their Super Bowl ad to capture attention and spark curiosity. So when you see that ad for the new BMW on the Super Bowl, you go look it up and you check it out. That's the discovery equation. And for a podcast, like, how do you solve the discovery equation? Well, there's a few platforms you can be on. You can be on social media. Short form video has been one of the most successful organic discovery methods, especially with TikTok and Reels and YouTube Shorts. allowing you to get your content to go to people who just might be interested in it, not just following you. That's been a huge unlock, I think, for creators overall. Then you have Twitter, which is another great source. You have LinkedIn, which I'm seeing for podcasting, really great place to reach people because a lot of podcasting content is related to some kind of profession or some kind of goal. In this case here, we're talking about podcasting, and there's a lot of podcasters on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn's a pretty great platform, one that also values both text and video, not just video. So that's also something interesting about LinkedIn. And then you have, I think those are mainly the short form contents, right? You have LinkedIn, Twitter, short form video. That's kind of your short form. And then there's a medium form bucket, which Eric, I think you're touching on here, which is, it can be blog posts, it can be email newsletters, and it can also be medium form video. And this is all content that takes more than a minute to consume, but doesn't take 20 to 30 minutes. So you can capture 5 minutes of someone's time with a blog post about whatever it may be, and they'll read it and they'll get to know about your brand. They might subscribe to the newsletter. They might listen to the podcast after. You create this level of commitment between 30 seconds on social media and 30 minutes on your podcast that helps introduce the brand and the content. And that's medium form content, even harder to make than short form content, but I think extremely valuable if people can leverage it. Another great lever for podcast growth is SEO. And when people are searching on Google, they're like, ways to grow my podcast, how to invest in real estate. An article based on 10 minutes from your show could be fantastic. And then the article has the audio at the top or at the bottom so they can dive in deeper. That's a really good discovery mechanism. SEO is, or search ads and SEO is one of the major ways that businesses grow, services grow. Why not podcasts? And when you can take your content, turn it into something text-based, give it a headline like the #1 way to grow your podcast, 3 ways to leverage YouTube for your podcast, that's going to get discovered when people are searching for those things. And here's a little trick that maybe people aren't aware of. Google has a keyword search planner where you can search free Google keyword search, and you can search for keywords and see how frequently people are searching for them. And you can see how frequently people are searching for topics related to your podcast. Mm-hmm. If you take an episode that you just recorded and you kind of break it down to some of the topics, Momento can actually do this. If you just ask it, what are the core topics of my episode? It will give you a list. You pump that into the keyword search, see how frequently those things are being shared. And then it's a plug for Momento, but just because we built it this way, you can go back to Momento and say, write an article based on this episode related to this keyword. That's now an article that you can post on your Substack or your Medium, plug in your podcast episode there, plug in your YouTube channel, your Instagram, and now you have an article that will come up for that keyword. You know there's volume. You know there's people searching for that topic. And now you found a way to another method, another medium to drive people to the content.
Absolutely, dude. I'm big on actually repurposing in text format because I just feel like if maybe they're not going to become complete podcast listeners, I'm at least going to drive them to my site and they're going to at least learn about my brand and my business. And it works well in my situation as like an agency or service provider, where the blog is kind of just, another form of lead generation. And then again, if they're diehards, I'll always sneak in links to, I did a podcast episode about that. Click here or, just little strategies. But I think, people don't really think about like the written component or the blog component because everything nowadays is so much like video content. But I mean, the more written articles and text you're putting out on your website, and it could be a website for your podcast. In my case, it's a website for the company. Google's going to see that. You're going to start to earn trust, and you're going to start to rank for some of those keywords, and you're going to come up, in the top 10 for Google when people type in the search phrase related to that blog, related to that episode, and so. I'm a big believer in that. That's actually grown my site the most. I started blogging consistently summer of 2022. And I've like 4x'd the amount of traffic to my website just from that. Part of that is coming up with original ideas, but again, a lot of it, probably 75% of it is repurposing podcast transcripts into that. So the fact that Momento has a feature for that is killer.
Amazing. The other thing I'll plug here, not Momento, but Substack. I've seen a lot of people do great with Substack by having a free newsletter and then a paid version where you can release every podcast episode could be 2 free or 1 free article and then 1 paid article. And then people might be willing to pay $5 a month or $3 a month for your newsletter. And podcasters are always looking for ways to monetize. Mm-hmm. And do you want to wait until you have 100,000 listeners before you can monetize? Maybe not. You already have a few hundred great fans. And a Substack is another potential monetization strategy where you turn your podcast into some articles, put some great topics under the paid articles, and then people will have ways to connect with you through the podcast, through the newsletter. And there's so many great ways you can just take that content.
Oh, yeah, because I mean, I don't know the exact data, but it's probably like 1%, maybe up to 5% of like all podcasts that exist get enough downloads to get advertisers interested. We work on a couple big shows, but yeah, the vast majority of people don't have enough downloads to go the traditional route where you get advertisers to buy space on your show. So using a strategy like that where you can begin to monetize with a smaller audience, but a dedicated audience because of that great content you're putting out is really smart. So tell me, what else are you excited about with Momento? And then I want to talk about the podcast space in general, some predictions, some things that you're seeing. But let's talk about, with Momento, what's next? What are you working on? How are you improving it?
I mean, I'm super excited about what's coming next. The ultimate goal of Momento is to help anybody with content reach the max potential audience that they have. So you should never miss out on a potential listener or reader or follower on social media just because you weren't able to take your content and package it in a way to reach them. So I'm excited about a world where every creator is able to use Momento to package their content in so many different ways that feels authentic and accurate to their voice and reach so many more people than they ever thought possible. Doing a startup, we get exposed to a lot of audiences and a lot of people, and you really realize how big the world is. You know, most podcasts kind of leads into maybe your next question about stats in the industry. Most podcasts have less than 1,000 listeners. If not, most podcasts have less than 100 listeners. But there's really great information. And ultimately, Momento is going to exist to help people who are recording, writing, creating great content, mine it in a way and repackage it in a way that can be distributed and discovered so that nobody is going to be blocked or limited by the limitations of time, marketing, creative. It's going to be this tool that the same way we don't even think about making a PowerPoint or even think about making, writing a Word document, just it's obvious that you could do that. Content repurposing and packaging should be that obvious in the future.
Love it. Yeah. And just the accessibility of it and being able to, if you're a small person with your, small brand or small business, you don't have like the financial resources or the team. It sounds like this tool, and as we move forward with AI, it's going to make everything more available and easier to get your message out, and then hopefully to grow that following and do with it what you will, whether you're building your brand or trying to monetize or become a thought leader. Very cool. So let's talk about podcasting real quick. So David and I were just at Podcast Movement Evolutions in Vegas, but tell me, what did you learn or what did you see or what are you excited about? And how are you kind of going to fit into that with Momento?
Back when we were actually in Podcast Movement in Dallas, which was August of 2022, the big buzz was video. Everyone was talking about, I know I need to do video, I'm not doing video. That was the thing I heard with every podcaster I met, big and small, even the big brands, I won't name any, they all had the same kind of thought. The big difference I saw in Vegas about 2 weeks ago was that video is still the focus, but everyone's on board. No one's saying like I need to do video, but I'm not doing video. Most people have started recording on Riverside or Squadcast, whatever it might be. They're trying to find a way to incorporate video. But what's still the same is that people find video laborious, it's tiring, it's extra work. And I'm starting to see some interesting trends where some people are recording video, but only editing the audio and then using the video for their promotion, which I think is actually a great strategy because, using something like Momento, you can pump in the video through the AI, have it identify what you need to share. It doesn't need to be edited to the level that your podcast needs to be, but you can still spend the time editing your audio. But there's definitely a conclusion that video is going to be important in the podcast space. We're seeing YouTube take a big step into podcasting, turning their playlists into RSS feeds. I think that's very exciting. I think YouTube is my favorite platform right now for discovery, and I can maybe expand on that a little bit after this question. But I think the big difference in overall is that video is taking over. It's very important for podcasting. And the nuance I will add to this whole point is when people hear video is important for podcasting, there's this visceral reaction of no. Podcasting is an audio platform. It's an audio medium. And that's why it's so great. And I really agree with that. And I think the caveat I put to the whole video point is that when people say video, they don't mean, or I at least don't think, they should be posting the whole episode on YouTube. Now, if you want to do that, I think it's not a bad idea. You don't really lose anything if you go that direction. But I do think when it comes to the short and medium parts of the funnel, the discovery aspects of podcasting, that's where video needs to live. But I think podcasting as audio only, passive, on the go, that is going to be alive and well. That's going to be something that distinguishes podcasting. And I think there's this collision of video and podcasting that I'm glad that we started in the podcast world and it's slowly migrating to the video world, or else we might have missed out on the opportunity to create this medium of long form passive conversation.
So you listen to most podcasts on YouTube, even if you're just listening to the audio. Do you like have the video playing? But okay.
No, I don't. I am 100% listening only on my app, but I do like discover things on like in my feed.
Yeah.
Or if there's like a 5-minute segment on YouTube.
It's so funny because I've even been thinking about, currently I do put the full video on YouTube, but one, it's a lot of work. And then two, I'm wondering, like, do I even need to do this? Because like you said, you're not losing anything, but maybe, I should be, in addition to the short form repurposing for like Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts, maybe I should be cutting more medium form where it's like a 5-minute clip from the podcast instead of the whole thing. Or at least if I am going to do the whole thing, putting 1 or 2 medium form clips on my YouTube as well. Because really, one, I don't think I've ever watched a full length YouTube podcast. Maybe Joe Rogan. I watched the one with Elon Musk for maybe like an hour, but it's something to think about, guys. If you're out there, one, you definitely need to have some kind of video strategy, and what that is could be a little different. Short form, yes. Full video podcast, maybe not. But like David said, maybe some medium form content with that. I actually have a friend who basically only listens on YouTube. Like even if he's driving somewhere, he'll like put the podcast, the video version up, and then just put the phone down in his car and listen to that, which is interesting. I if I'm doing just audio, obviously I'll listen on Apple. That's my app of choice. It's funny because I have a lot of colleagues and friends here in LA in the TV and film world, and they don't listen to any audio only. If they're going to listen to a podcast, they'll almost always play it from YouTube. One friend in particular, but a couple other friends who for some reason don't get excited about audio. And I'm like, well, you listen to it like when you're on a run or at the gym, or like if you're doing dishes. And I think and I agree with you in that sense, like long form passive listening to audio will always be a thing. And I think that's kind of where the podcast industry started. And I'm a little all over the place, but the video strategy needs to be there, and the way that you do it can vary.
I think you actually make a super good point here. And there's a stat I saw recently that I think over 50% of podcast listeners supposedly listen on YouTube. And it sounds,
it's wild.
That's wild, right? Like, and there's some good reason to believe it. One, people are already on YouTube. Again, back to the point of you want to go where people already are.
They're already there.
They're already there. They're already on YouTube. They can discover your content on YouTube way faster. Whether if it's a clip from your podcast, like this part right here, it could be 5 minutes about the importance of YouTube for podcasting. That's going to get a lot more discoverability on YouTube search and related videos than probably our whole episode that we're recording. I mean, I hope everyone gets a chance to listen if it's valuable for them. So the discoverability, the discovery mechanism of YouTube is just so powerful. People are already there. There's a few big shows that do full length episodes, like Diary of a CEO is awesome. Lex Friedman's on there, and they do great. I mean, they're also fantastic. Like they're pro level podcasters, and we're all working towards that level. So I think they produce these long podcasts, and they have a bit more to stand on for those. But all that being said, I do think that medium form video is incredibly important for podcasters, a huge opportunity. And when you link that to the fact that YouTube is the only platform where you could have your short, medium, and long form content on one channel. And you can organize it by playlist, and it's organized kind of already by shorts and video. It creates a great place. I'm not paid by YouTube to say all this, but I'm thinking about the space and how you'd grow a podcast. You can play with so many levers on YouTube, and you can still drive people to your podcast if people like your content enough through shorts, through medium form content, and then maybe a bit of your long form on YouTube. They'll want to take you to the car and take you while they're cooking and while they're cleaning. Let's make it easy for people to get introduced to a new podcast. Because as you said earlier in the show, it's a very intimate experience. It's someone that you start to talk to or listen to every week, and you look forward to it. So we can make that first encounter really friendly and easy on places like YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, etc. And then eventually building that relationship. Really think about our listeners as people we're building relationships with. There will be a point where they want to also listen to us chatting in the car and wherever they may be.
No doubt. I mean, it's unfortunate too, but yeah, like you said, nobody is going on to like Apple Podcasts and like typing something in to go learn something. If they want to learn something, or they're going to go to YouTube. And so, then they might start consuming your content. They're going to be searching for things around your content, and you need to be there. If you come up and they start consuming, some of that medium form, short form, and they start to like you as a creator, then perhaps they're going to go listen to you and take that audio with them wherever they're going to go. But yeah, long story short, YouTube's going to be great for discoverability. The short form clips are going to be great for discoverability. Unfortunately, people aren't waking up every morning, typing things into Apple, looking for like a podcast to listen to that day. Whereas social media, I mean, everyone
wakes up.
Everyone wakes up, they're on it, and then another 100 times throughout the day, they're scrolling. So they're going to see stuff. You're going to be found if you're putting out high quality content in those formats for those people to consume. Whereas with audio, it sucks because I'm a big audio guy. I spent most of my career working in audio, but it's a little bit harder to be discovered. But the moral of the story is putting out that good content in video form, repurposing it. And Momento's doing a great job of that. Excited for you guys, excited for what's to come, wishing you all the best. And that's all I really have for you, David. Is there anything else you want to share? Anything we missed? Plug away, plug yourself, your company. Let us know what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you're a podcaster and you're looking for ways to save time and looking for ways to find new audiences, try out Momento. It's a brand new tool. It's leveraging AI in the best way that we know possible. And we really care about the podcast space. We really care about podcasters growing. We work with a lot of small, medium, and some large podcasts as well. So please try it out. And anyone can feel free to reach out to me directly. We have a Discord as well. When you're signing up for Momento, you'll see a link to our Discord. You can reach out to me directly, and I'm happy to chat. I think that maybe as you were talking, I'd love to maybe close with one more point, that audio in the past was so much easier to discover because people used to listen to the radio, and a lot of podcasters come from a radio background where distribution was almost free because you just had a radio in your car and you could just switch between a bunch of stations. We're faced with a challenge in 2023 for podcasts of trying to reach people where they are, because we're not in front of their faces anymore. So I think that's it's an exciting time. There's a lot of great platforms that enable that. Hopefully AI can help bridge the gap for us as podcasters to solve these problems. And I'm excited to see a lot of great podcasts find new people and grow.